I don't know if it's possible to make an interesting video about wiring, but I'm going to give it a shot because the wiring on this trailer is shot. There's not really a right way, but there's definitely a wrong way to do it. And if you want to do a good job, it's very tedious and time consuming, which is why most people don't do a good job, including the people who build the trailers. I guess let me show you the bad. This is what you don't want to do. Starting right up front, got this 4-pin flat connector. This is for lights only. There's nothing here for the brakes or for the breakaway, which we're required to have. The wire is just wrapped in electrical tape. There's no loom wrap. Grounded right to the frame. We've got some unsealed butt connectors here, and the wire is just put through these little loom clamps with no protection at all. But it gets worse. That's right. We've got the Scotch locks. They're all over on this trailer. I swear these things were scientifically designed to torture electricians and mechanics. Yeah, these things won't make it one winter without being all green and crusty. Now let's take a look at the good. This is my trailer. It's a 14,000 pound Kaufman built in 2010. Needs a deck, but otherwise it's a pretty nice trailer. The wiring's not perfect. I have made some repairs. You can see I got some sealed butt connectors here that are split open. I need to fix that. But all the lights work. It has a breakaway. But the real star of the show is here. This trailer has a molded, sealed, factory-made wiring harness. The only real issue is the harness must be made to accommodate a much longer trailer. So they just bundled up the extra wire inside the frame. But you can see this is a for real sealed harness. All the splices are inside these molded rubber sections. All the wire is jacketed. And everywhere that there's a pigtail or plug, it's molded right onto the wire. And every light and brake and everything has its own discrete ground wire. What we want to do is end up kind of somewhere between the two. You know, obviously we can't build a sealed modular harness here in the shop, but we can build something that's pretty robust that should do the job for a number of years. And when it does have problems, it's easy to fix. Yeah, I think we're just going to start over. We will save the lights. I think they're good. The only problem is we're missing a couple. We need a license plate light, which I believe was originally on this fender. This trailer is over 80 inches wide, so we also need 3 clearance lights in the center at the rear. And I can't see where it ever had those. Not exactly sure what we're going to do about that, because there's not much of a lip here underneath the wood. So we'll have to figure that out. I drew up a wiring diagram, because why not? Should be pretty universal. We're going to start by connecting the 7-pin socket to this terminal box. This is a 7-blade RV style socket. So there's RV and there's automotive. The pins all do the same things, just the colors of the wires are different. Don't ask me why. Good thing about standards is there's so many to choose from. So we're going to stick these hopefully through here, like so. And the big guys, the white one is ground. Okay. This is a sealed terminal box made by Truck Light. It's been rotting on the shelf for who knows how long, so we might as well use it up. So the terminal block here is labeled and the colors match the RV style connector. So we're just going to go like for like. That'll work. If I was really OCD, I would have cut each wire just long enough to reach its terminal. But don't worry, it'll be a proper bird's nest by the time we're done. Okay, I got the terminal box mounted. This gizmo here is the breakaway. It's just a battery, rechargeable, and it has a little switch with a cable on it. And the idea is that when the trailer breaks away from the vehicle, towing it, this cable pulls out this little plug and it closes the contacts inside this little switch, and it sends battery power from this gizmo to the electric brakes. Now, how well that actually works, I don't know. Legally, we have to have it. I think I can just mount the switch in the same hole as the breakaway box. Save myself a screw. Yeah, that'll work. Okay, we gotta make our first connections. So according to the wiring diagram, this blue wire from the battery box needs to connect to the black wire on the switch. Then the blue wire and the white wire go to the brake and the ground terminals here. And the black and the white wire go to the ground and the auxiliary terminal inside the box. I guess let's just make these up real quick, show you how I do it. As far as joining wires together, you got a couple options. My preferred method is to use these uninsulated butt connectors and then cover them with adhesive lined shrink tube. I get these connectors from McMaster Car. I'm sure they're available from other places, but you get what you pay for. These are 3M brand. Never had any problems with them. Do not get the high temperature version. They're actually cheaper, but the high temp connectors are made from steel instead of copper, and they're really a pain to crimp. Okay, blue to black, like so. That looks pretty good. Your other options would be to use a heat shrink butt connector or one of those solder seal butt connectors. I've used both. I prefer this method, just personal preference. Your other option would be soldering or soldering, which is a good time to bring up our new electrical mascot that I have created, Colonel Lincoln, the soldering salmon, or as I'm sure you would pronounce it, Colonel Lincoln, the soldering salmon. I'm getting stickers made up. Should be here in a couple of weeks, so stay tuned for that. No, there is no limit to the lengths I will go to troll pet ants. Anyway, I don't like soldering just because it's awkward and it takes a lot of time. And a lot of times I'm working down inside of an engine bay, limited access, or I'm laying on my back with salt and snow dripping in my eyes. I just want to get it done and get out of there. This is a Weller 6966C heat gun. It's made just for doing electrical work. It's pricey, but I love this thing. I mean, I use it almost every day. Beats a box of Strike Anywhere matches. Okay, fantastic. Now we need to add to this wire to make it to the terminal box. So we need some new wire. This is what you want to use. This is automotive primary wire, and it meets SAE J1128 specs. A lot of times they call it marine wire or boat wire or whatever. Technically speaking, this is what you want to use. So the box and the switch came with these grounding ears. We're going to cut those off. We don't need those. We're going to ground them right to the box. Okay, all our splices and connections are made. Now we need to wrap the wires. So I'm using split loom wrap. It's always fun feeding the wire through it. It should Go right up inside of this. Little gizmo here. There we go. Wrap a little tape around that junction there. Everybody freaks out if I tear it, so I'm going to cut it with these fancy Mac Tools scissors that a viewer sent me. That's 3M Super 33 electrical tape. You definitely get what you pay for when it comes to electrical tape. You don't want to buy the cheap crap. Okay. Now if we want to, we can wrap this whole loom in electrical tape. That's kind of the automotive way to do it. Seems like the automotive harnesses, they use this real wide electrical tape, like 2 inches wide. Okay, now if we had a loom clamp on that, we'd probably be all set. Aw, really? Thought we were gonna make it for a minute. Let me go see if I got a nut that'll fit over that. I think I can thread this nut over the end of the self-snapping screw that I broke off, and nobody will know the difference. There we go. Like it never happened. I like these plastic loom clamps. I mean, they'll break eventually, but they last longer than the steel ones. They always rot out. I took a gander underneath. The wiring back here, kind of in the tilting part of the trailer, it's pretty good. There's a couple of Scotch locks and some unsealed connectors back here we got to clean up. But for the most part, I think it's fine. So all we really need is a harness that runs from kind of the middle forward. And rather than lay on my back and do all that, I think we're going to try to lay it out up here on the deck. And we'll build the harness kind of complete and then install it as an assembly. At least that's the plan. That is a proper rat's nest. But we'll dial back the sketchiness as we go. We've got to join 5 of these 14 gauge jacketed duplex wires together for the brakes. So we're going to do 3 on one side, 2 on the other. So these are 14 gauge wires. 3 of them I think will fit inside this connector. This is made for 8 gauge wire. And it takes a pretty serious crimper. This is the For Real tool. It's a stake-on crimper made by Thomas & Betts. But there's, cheaper alternatives, of course. There we go. All right, can we do the red ones? I don't like to twist these wires. 2 of them you can twist and that's not a problem, but when you get like 3 or more, it doesn't seem to work. You always end up with one that's kind of wrapped around the outside of the others or something that you don't want. So we want to crimp on the opposite side of the seam. Want a nice long length of adhesive lined shrink tube. So I'll stick that over. Okay, now here's where it gets a little tricky. We only have 2 wires to put in the other end, and that means it's going to be kind of a loose crimp. So what we're going to do is strip one of them back extra long, and then we'll bend it back over on itself. So now that wire is essentially a double thickness. Do the same thing with this one. You could also just, stick in a dummy wire. Whatever you choose to do. Of course. That's why I don't want to do this laying on my back underneath of a trailer. Would not be fun. Okay, time for the next trick. This is liquid electrical tape. And we're going to put some kind of at each end. Because even though this is adhesive lined shrink tubing, there isn't enough adhesive in there to, at least in my experience, to fully close the gap when you have multiple wires. Alright, perfect. So you can see it squeezing out of both ends. That's what we want. It's messy stuff though, so you might want to give it a little time before you try to jam it all together. There you go. That's the best way I know to make a multi-wire splice. The only way to do a better job than that would be to, build a mold and inject some kind of urethane or rubber around it or whatever. But here in the shop, this is about the best we can do. And the final product, this slightly less tangled mess. Okay, getting pretty close. So I've got front marker lights wired up. We need to join these two harnesses together and then pick up this harness for the other marker light. So this is the strategy. I've got a power wire and a ground wire for each light. The ground wire goes to the screw that goes through to the ground on the inside. Okay, now the extra wire that I've got here, just going to double it back on itself. Better to have too much than not enough. Not too shabby. Okay, I'll make up my last connections inside the box and we're almost done. Metric, well there's your problem. Thought this was America. Yeah, right. It blows, but there's no heat. Might be the end of the line for this old girl. Man, I love this thing. It's led a pretty rough life, though, getting tossed around underneath the rusty vehicles and dropped off of toolboxes and who knows what. We'll see if we can fix it, but For the time being, we're gonna have to go old school. Man, I don't know why people like these things so much. Anytime. Anytime. All right, well, let's find something else. I ran into a little snag with my backup heat gun. Turns out that this liquid electrical tape is quite flammable. So that's not very handy. That's why I use the guard. I think we're done. Let's take a little tour. Got a new license plate light. Those are the original loom clamps. That's the original wire routing as far as I can tell. On the tail lights, I moved the ground wire to the harness instead of grounding to the chassis. I added the 3 clearance lights in the middle. It also has its own ground. And then I had to cut out that piece of angle iron on the little ramp that flips over. This is the original tail light wiring. I just cleaned up the connections. And then I added this harness here for the 3 lights in the middle. Cleaned up the Scotch locks over there. Like I said, this is real nice Phillips jacketed for 14.3, you know, for real automotive wire. Nothing wrong with that. So there's the splice to the harness that we made up. There's the wire there for the license plate light. And then there is the big splice for the brake wires. And you can see the brake wires go out along that center rail. Those are the original loom clamps. I just reused everything there. Got them zip tied to the axles. That's the way I like to do it, because the wires that come out of those backing plates are pretty weak. And you have to have enough flex here for your axles to move up and down. And this jacketed duplex wire works pretty well for that. So there's the harness that we made up. It runs through the original holes that were torched in those channel iron cross members all the way up front. All new harness up in the front. You can see where the marker light harness joins up with the harness underneath the trailer right there under the tongue. And then it runs over into the terminal box, which is all made up. Breakaway is there. Our new connector, got it loomed to the hitch. Let's test it out. This is just a benchtop DC power supply, 12 volts. Let's start with tail lights. Should be that guy there. Okay, 2.8 amps, that sounds reasonable. Got that one, that one, that one. Got part of that one. Those are good. And we have part of that one. That's interesting. Let's try left turn signal. Should be this guy here. I think we have part of a left turn. Okay, same on the right turn. That must be correct. I guess the outside bulb doesn't work for the turn, only for the marker. Let's try the brakes. So that should be this one right here. I heard them. Ooh, 9.19 amps. Takes a lot of juice to power those magnets. Yep. 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 Okay, good. So we must have a bad bulb. The outside bulb is bad here, and then the big one on the inside must be bad on this side. I wonder if I've got those. Sure enough, I had them both. So let's see. Jam that guy in there. Like so. Hey, there we go. On both sides. Cool. Let the record show. The lights all work. I like to put a little bit of hot snot glue anywhere that a wire passes through, passes through bare metal. Just to give it a fighting chance. I'll show you how I do these centerless rims. People hate these things, and I really don't know why. They're not bad to work with. Got this little wedge. You can see it has kind of a circular pattern that needs to match the curvature of the rim. Like so. Now you see we're going to be in trouble here because it has this little dimple, and that needs to be on one side or the other of the clamp wedge. On big trucks, a lot of times they'll have two dimples, and you're supposed to put one of the clamps in the middle so that the rim can't try to spin on the hub, but I don't think that's going to matter. Okay, now we're going to run them all down just till they touch. I'll make sure you got the wedges all facing the right way, and then what I like to do is just use a hammer, set it here on the side, and we'll use that to check the alignment. Okay, so we're pretty far out. Where's the high spot? Right there. Low spot. So we'll back this one off. Just a bit. On the opposite side in. This one off, and the opposite side in. It's not too bad. That's pretty good. I mean, you're always going to have some variation in the tire, but the rim is running perfect. That'll do. Like I said, I don't know why people hate these things so much. They're really not bad to work with, and they can carry a lot of weight. Just other than the fact that it's hard to find tires for them, there's really nothing wrong with this setup. Well, there's your problem. Right there. Broken. That is some very tiny, very fragile heater resistor wire. Let me see if I can fix it. If I can recrimp that, I might be able to make her go again. It's not pretty, but I think it's gonna work. Oh, that's cold. There we go. Gotta be a little more careful with it. That is some very, very delicate resistor wire. Let's go.